Hello, and welcome to the Purpose Up podcast. I'm your host, Ben Stein, and today I'm very excited to have with me Tamara Green and David Dachinger. Welcome, guys.
Hey, Ben, great to be here.
Very nice to be here. Thanks.
So we're going to jump into the story, but first want to know a little bit about you guys, your backgrounds, and kind of what you guys are currently doing right now.
We have kind of diverse backgrounds, and we do very different things. We're wearing different hats. I'm a composer and lieutenant in a fire department, as well as audio and video producer. And Tamara, you can speak to what you do.
I'm a psychotherapist. I have been for about 26 years, a love, dating, and relationship coach. And I've been facilitating guided meditations for 15 years, something like that.
Awesome. I love the combination there. There's so much we can unpack. So let's start with the where the story begins that we're going to pick up today. So David, I know you got a diagnosis for cancer a few years back. Can you tell us a little bit about where you were and what kicked off your cancer journey?
Sure. It really started with 2 sets of 5 words. I was sitting in the barber chair in a beautiful fall day, getting my hair cut, and my barber, Fast Freddy, was doing his thing. And he said, "What is that on your neck?" And I had no idea what he was talking about. But when I looked in the mirror, I saw a rather large lump here on the left side. And that led to a series of doctor's appointments and diagnostics, scans, biopsies, and receiving the next set of 5 words, which is, "You have stage 4 cancer." So I was literally walking around with metastatic cancer that was already into my lymph system, and I had no idea until my barber pointed it out.
That's crazy. How old were you when you got that diagnosis?
I was 58 at the time, and done all the things that you're supposed to do. Got my prostate PSA checked and colonoscopies and all that kind of stuff. But it just was one of those things. It was kind of an outlier in terms of symptoms and any obvious signs.
Right. And I'm no cancer expert, but stage 4 and lymphatic cancer are both, pretty tough cancers, right?
There is no stage 5. So once you're at stage 4, it means it's metastasized and it's moving around the body. It actually gone from my mouth to the lymph nodes in my neck and affected several, but a couple very, very dramatically. So yeah, it's something that's it's quite serious and possibly fatal.
So what did that course of, there must have been shock, all those stages of denial and all that. What did the receiving that news look like? And then what did the action plan look like after that?
Well, for me, I was in the doctor's office when David got that diagnosis from the doctor, the oncologist. My mind immediately just went, wait a minute, what? I just kept saying that over to myself. Wait, what? What did he just say? What? I just couldn't believe it. Could not soak it in. Here, my strapping hunk of a husband who works out every day and eats really well, he's getting this terrible diagnosis. And then just 4 days prior, our son, who was 13 at the time, got diagnosed with Lyme disease. So there was a lot going on in 1 week. So I think I went into super freak mode there.
Understandably so.
And it lasted for probably about 2 weeks. But yeah, it was tough. How about for you?
There's no manual for how to prepare for that moment. Just definitely numbness. And I certainly wasn't even hearing all the things the doctor said. Thankfully, Tamara was there and she did pretty much get it all. But I literally didn't hear him say stage 4. And I literally missed a lot of the treatment plan he was laying out because you're bombarded with quite a bit of very intense information.
Right.
Being that advanced stage of cancer, they don't want to mess around and wait, pretty much fast tracking all the treatment. So there was a lot of stuff coming fast and furious, a lot of, things to consider, decisions to make, obviously implications with life, work, and life in general, putting everything on hold essentially to focus completely on just moving through this diagnosis and hopefully into remission.
Yeah, no, I mean, probably not many people can identify with those circumstances, but I'm sure many people have had that experience of getting bad news and then just having the rest of everything kind of melt away while, you just kind of sit there in shock and try and process. So yeah, stage 4, what did that, treatment plan look like, and how did you get through it?
This was just before Thanksgiving holidays. So it was being prescribed to do a concurrent radiation and chemotherapy treatment. Really started Thanksgiving weekend, and chemo was one day a week for 8 weeks, plus a second day for what they call hydration, where they're giving you fluids, and then 5 days a week the radiation, which was to my neck and also to my mouth. So quite an interesting procedure where your head is lashed down, and you can't move. I could barely breathe because of a bite block in my mouth. And so there's a lot of downtime. There's a lot of time for, reflection, inward looking, self-discovery, and work that I found I was going to do, because why not make some constructive use out of all this, idle time? And that's kind of when I went back to some of the tools that we had both shared before, meditation and mindfulness, and in some cases just affirmations. All those hours spent in the infusion center and in between treatments became my time to kind of heal, to do some deep inner work, and to make it a journey of self-discovery rather than just like the lowest, worst thing that had ever happened to me.
That's, it's an amazing way to deal with tough circumstances. So, and I think it's beautiful. Did you, and this is a question for both of you, did you guys both have a pretty healthy mindfulness practice prior to this? Just curious about what the baseline was to then go into that.
Yeah, I certainly did and have for many years. But I want to say right away that you don't actually have to have a long time practice in order to just jump right into it and get a huge amount of benefit from it.
Right.
But yes, because of my yoga practice for many years, that mindfulness, the meditation component at the end, and I did, Qigong and Tai Chi and those kind of Asian arts that include meditation. And it really did make a world of difference for me, being the caregiver to my 2 guys. And like he said, putting everything on hold. When somebody gets a diagnosis like that, it really affects the whole family. It's a kind of a shock to everybody, and the kids are asking what's going on. So staying very calm for our kids was vitally important, as well as extended family members who were very concerned as well.
Right. And David?
I had started meditating in college. I did transcendental meditation, didn't really continue with it for more than several years, but did have other mindful practices. Some of them had to do with simply, going out and being quiet, looking and gazing at nature, kind of simple stuff. But I had done some courses where we had used certain self-development, self-awareness tools, and some of those were really helpful during the cancer journey. So some of that was what I would bring to the infusion center and put on my iPod and put the earbuds in my ears and just zone out, kind of use it to go to another place. Certainly some of the physical discomfort during treatment is something, you wouldn't wish on your worst enemy.
Right.
And so it's nice to have a way to kind of go somewhere else for a little while, just ease your mind and go on a little, mental vacation.
Yeah, kind of disassociate from the present reality.
Uh-huh.
Right.
So just out of curiosity, was anything particularly helpful that you listened to? Or we're going to kind of, spoiler alert, we're going to get to your guys' solution in a minute, but was there anything that you guys found, affirmation-wise? I mean, I think my only experience with audio affirmations was like, Tony Robbins and stuff like that got you like really pumped up. What type of stuff were you getting into?
One of the best things I did was it's put out by an organization called Access Consciousness, and they're somewhere between an affirmation and a question. They're sort of what they call clearing statements, and it starts with a question, kind of opens you up to exploring that possibility, and then a clearing statement which kind of helps you to just dissolve all your judgments and beliefs about that particular thing. That I use quite a bit. They focus a lot on the body, which a lot of mindfulness and meditation just kind of centers in this area. But
right.
I really think that the body is almost like a neglected part of our self-care in terms of being aware of what's going on, and in terms of wanting to nurture it and to heal it as best we possibly can. So my theory was I turned over the big medical piece to the doctors and the technicians and the nurses, and then I was going to like fill in where I could have some actual influence over my own outcome.
And what I'm sure mindfulness must have a huge impact on treatment, and I'm sure it's also impossible to quantify, but the logical mind must ask the question, how much impact do you think it had on your journey?
There's no way to quantify it other than how I was perceived by medical professionals, and obviously my own personal experience. And we literally went for a follow-up visit with the oncologist a few months after I had my surgery and was cancer-free. And he sees just hundreds of patients a week. He said, "How did you do so well during this treatment? It's brutal. Like people, you can't eat. Your tongue becomes so scrambled from the radiation that food tastes terrible. People become hospitalized. They get feeding tubes, on and on." I said, "Well, I had an amazing caregiver." And I did some movement, yoga, I walked, and I did this mindfulness and sort of, self-care. And his eyes lit up. He said, "I want that for everyone." So that was not the only time that I got that kind of feedback, that people who actually knew the level of intensity this treatment had and saw how I made out were very pleasantly surprised how the outcome was.
Yeah, my mother-in-law actually just had a tumor in her throat that she got taken care of, and she's cancer-free now and doing well. But she went through that radiation, and so I'm very familiar with kind of like how it can mess with you in the recovery process that's needed there. Tamara, from your point of view, how did you think David took it? It sounds like a rock star. But what was your point of view during that process?
He was a rock star, and he is a rock star. I was amazed at how he just made certain decisions right from the beginning. I am not going to need a PICC line. I am not going to be hospitalized. I am hospitalized. I am not going to get a feeding tube. And that level of determination, I think, made a big difference. Plus, this practice that we were doing. We also did something really cool, which we now call the gratitude walk. So he kept his body moving, as did I, because it's very stressful to be a caregiver as well. And we, every chance we could get, we would go out walking, and he would say what he was grateful for, and then I would say what I was grateful for, and back and forth we'd go during that hour, so that whatever was bothering us or worrying us at the beginning just completely went away, because we were so focused on what we were grateful for. But I also want to say this Access Consciousness course that we had attended several times before the cancer treatment.
Right.
I found it also very helpful. And, they're really kind of weird, interesting awareness type questions that you ask yourself, like, well, how does it get better than this? That would be an example, right? And so what I found with that, it was also very helpful for me, is that it's impossible to be in judgment and to be in awareness at the same time. You just can't do it. It's kind of like fear and love. You can't be feeling fear and feeling love at the same time.
Right.
So by asking these really interesting questions, how does it get better than this? Or what unawareness am I using to create the worry that I'm choosing? You know, those kind of questions. You really do pop out of judgment and over into awareness. And suddenly when you're in awareness, the whole, world of possibilities open up to you.
Right.
So you're not engaging your ego by answering the question. You're just moving over into what's possible. And that's what we kept doing throughout this process. So after about 2 weeks of being pretty freaked out and not sleeping very well and very worried, I got myself very settled down into a very calm place and, asking myself, what am I making so vital, so important that if I didn't make it so vital, so important, would actually give me some peace here? And then that's when it came to me, you know what, I'm just going to use this as an experience. He talked about self-discovery. It certainly was for me as well. I'm going to use this experience to be very present for him, for our son, for myself. And why not go ahead and use this as a time for my own self-discovery, self-care, even self-love.
Right.
And it really worked. It was an amazing experience that we've always been so close, but that experience brought us even that much closer, and even to our son. And it was just, it's so crazy to say this, but it was one of the most challenging experiences we ever had in our life, but it was also the most beautiful.
Right. It's like you'd never wish it, but the outcome that came out of it was profound.
Yeah. And even in it, even knowing that there's a possibility that David wasn't going to make it, even there, I found peace in that, knowing that I was just present each and every step of the way, with each moment. It was really, at times, even blissful. It was amazing.
Wow. That's, I hope we can get more people there. So
Yes.
I think it's a nice transition into, I think you guys saw the power of bringing certain modalities into treatment, and you both had certain experience producing different types of results with people. Talk about loving meditations and where the idea. I mean, I think we can see where the idea came from, but how did this idea develop into what you're offering now, and what does that offer look like?
Well, just to jump back to that follow-up visit with the oncologist, when his eyes lit up and he said, "That's what I want for my patients," we realized we had been creating meditations for a YouTube channel. We had that skill. We now walk in the shoes of the caregiver and the patient. This doctor was expressing a very great need in his practice, and we realized this is like that aha moment, like we're going to put this all together and pay it forward. And our mission became, we want to make the journey that others are going through right now or in the future easier, and one of more purpose. So that's when we decided to start Loving Meditations, and that was it involved developing and building an app so we could make it a very accessible mobile type of device meditation, and also creating some other products that help calm people in healthcare settings. So we've, since continue to create meditations based on our conversations with people who are going through the journey, where someone will say, I'm just freaked out by this, having to go into the MRI machine. We'll create a meditation for scanxiety. So we try to be really responsive to, the pain points, and obviously to help people get through with less trauma and drama, and hopefully more calm and ease.
And in your experience, what has the response been thus far? How long have you guys been doing this for? Curious to see how it's being received.
So let's see, we put out the app in 2015, I think it was, and we've had amazing responses, not only from patients who are literally going through chemotherapy and their caregivers, but also from healthcare professionals. Very, very positive responses. One of the things that we experienced quite a bit was waiting in the waiting room areas of, the hospitals or doctor's offices, and just getting completely stressed out because of the crazy news or the talk show, or, it really, our stress level would go way up, and we noticed everybody else in the waiting room looking pretty irritated and stressed as well.
Right. I mean,
So
even on a good day, watching the news on cable TV.
it just is such a downer. So we created something called Loving Meditations TV, where it's this beautiful, calming imagery that goes, on the TV in the waiting rooms, with David's amazing, he's a Grammy-nominated composer. His music is just gorgeous. And then we have these inspirational quotes or facts, like little facts about nature or the body, or, about cancer or whatever. And we're getting amazing. We're actually hearing that people show up to their appointments early just so they can watch and get nice and calm before they go see the doctor.
Nice.
Very nice.
By improving doctor outcomes too, with the punctuality there.
Right. Exactly.
So are you finding a difference? We talked about you guys having a practice before, and you talked about, one doesn't need a background in it. Is there a difference with one who has had some access to that self-reflection versus someone who's starting on the path during this journey? Is there any kind of ramp up needed, or is it just they can dive right in?
All it takes is someone being open and willing to do it. There's really no ramp up at all. We have tutorials in the app that will explain to somebody very simply how to meditate. It doesn't require any special body position or even special environment. It's really, we've set it up so you can literally do it any time and any place, simply by turning on your device and putting in the earbuds. And they run different lengths. They cover different subjects. So we actually have a feature that helps somebody, by swiping left or right, yes or no, help somebody find the best meditation for how they're feeling. So it makes it super easy. There's really no prerequisites.
What are you guys kind of most proud of when you think about what you've created and how it lives out in the world?
Well, among other things, the fact that we're in over 20 countries around the world, that we get amazing feedback from people who are dealing with some major life challenges, and the caregivers, and by proxy, the healthcare providers as well, are getting burnt out because of compassion fatigue. So really down the food chain, there is so much sort of collateral need for this kind of mindful wellness, that when we hear that we've helped one person, that's we've like fulfilled our mission. We're very, very gratified.
Nice. It's beautiful. Where do you guys see room to expand your mission?
Well, we do have our mission actually is that by 2021, that the powerful effect of mindfulness and meditation actually reach 10 million people, whether it be in their home or in healthcare facilities, that it reached 10 million people going through cancer. I wish I could say there was a lot more mindfulness wellness or mind and body wellness programs in hospitals. You can certainly see some of it like on the East Coast of the United States, maybe the West Coast, but the rest, is really not using it very much, and certainly around the world. So we would love, we really have a heartfelt passion about getting this out, because our own experience was truly powerful going through cancer or any big life challenge. It could be anything. And we wrote about it. Oh, I'm sorry.
Go ahead.
No, we wrote about this in our the book that we wrote together called Live Calm with Cancer, where David wrote from the patient perspective and I wrote from the caregiver perspective. We just want to get it out there in the world, that this really does work. And if you can breathe, you can meditate, period. End of story. So
Nice.
it's doable.
Yeah, I mean, I guess it raises the question, and I'm sure you guys have thought about this. How does one, outside of podcasts such as this, help gain exposure and help make mindfulness seem sexy to those who may think it's a little woo-woo or out there? And I myself am a big proponent of meditation, and have a daily practice, and I get kind of cranky if I don't do it. And short. So, I definitely think speak to the benefits of it. How does one reach the people that may not be the most available audience for it?
It's something that I think there's a lot of, it's really starting to snowball, the effect of it. And I don't know that we can reach everyone and that everyone's necessarily going to be open to it or even benefit. It may not be right for them, but we're seeing a great expansion of acceptance and acknowledgement that this is research-backed there are research-backed studies that show that this actually works for all different problems. Could be cancer, could be heart disease, it could be high blood pressure. There are documented scientific studies that show the benefits are real. And to the extent that healthcare providers, insurance companies, and other professionals in the medical field are seeing that this actually works, that it's low cost and low risk, they are starting to become more open to bringing this to their facilities and to their patients. So we're kind of riding this little, wave. We're surfing the wave that's really starting to build, and we continue to connect with people all over the country and all over the world to kind of join in that movement.
All right, that's awesome. Question for you guys. I know, especially in the U.S. And our healthcare system, there's kind of a lot. It seems very easy to prescribe medication to help calm people down instead of mindfulness. And I know there's a time and place for everything, but just throwing a question out there, if somebody has the possibility for a prescription for Xanax versus mindfulness, how do you guys think about that? Because I think a lot of the times the pill seems like the easier route to go.
Well, that's, you almost touched on our little motto, which is meditation, not medication. Here's a great example. I was prescribed to get an MRI as a follow-up. And through a little bit of a snafu, I was prescribed a steroid. They didn't want me to have an anaphylactic reaction to the dye. So I took the steroid, which jacked me up, made me incredibly hyper, and MRI is a very claustrophobic scan anyway. So by the time they started putting me into the scan, I was ready to pull the plug and say, I can't do this. What I did remember was a very simple breathing technique that I just completely focused on my breath, nothing complicated, just total focus on the breath. And within a couple of minutes, my panic subsided and I was able to get through the 45-minute scan. Just an example of the alternative where a lot of people will get a sedative or something like lorazepam before getting a scan, just so they don't have this high anxiety stress thing. So I guess it's just a case in point that you can do something simple. Nobody will probably even know you're doing it, involving breath, which can really transport you from a place of stress, anxiety, and major insanity to calming down, becoming centered, and without the medication.
What's been the most surprising part about this journey for you guys?
I would have to say, here we are, we're just a social worker and a musician, right? And we're really making an impact. The kind of responses we're getting is really changing people's lives. They start using our meditations or reading our book or taking our workshops, and in a really bad place, like in the worst time of their life, the biggest, scariest challenge of their life.
Right.
And actually coming back and saying, oh my God, I feel different. I feel hopeful. I know I can get through this. I'm happier, even though I don't even know if I'm going to make it through cancer, or I feel like I'm, as a caregiver, so stressed out. I know that I'm just living a fuller life. In fact, one woman that I worked with that actually did unfortunately pass away from pancreatic cancer, the session right before, we did not know that it was her last session. But she said to me, Tamara, for the first time in my life, I'm truly living life, like every day, so in the present. And she was, fully engaged. I got her very, very engaged in doing meditation every day on our app. And she said, for the first time in my life, I am living every day so fully, and I'm happy. I'm truly happy. And then it was only a couple of weeks later that she passed away. So that is just like, wow, that means a lot.
It's beautiful. It's beautiful.
Yeah.
So you guys definitely have a healthy mindfulness practice, and you've faced death. Is death scary for you guys now?
Not for me.
No, my other life as a firefighter, we come into some pretty dangerous situations, and I feel like I do have guardian angels looking out for me.
Mm-hmm.
But I think that I would much rather go out in a blaze of glory than wither away in in a home someplace. So it doesn't on a daily basis. No, I think I'd rather live life to the fullest.
All right. One thing that's sticking with me from earlier that I wanted to highlight but didn't highlight earlier was when you were talking about the power of making decisions in terms of how your treatment was going to go. And I see that in people that I work with, and I'm sure in people that you guys have worked with, the power of a decision as opposed to trying or hoping, but just deciding, the kind of resolution that can bring in someone, and the change it can affect is very powerful. So I think it's really cool, A, that you did that, and B, it had the great results that it did. So kind of didn't want to wrap up before returning to that.
Yeah.
Well, thanks, Ben. Yeah, that's a wonderful point to highlight.
What else have we not gone over today that you think would be good for the audience to know about you guys, your product, or anything else before we wind things down?
Just that, we love to hear from anyone that's going through a challenge like cancer, and if there's some pain point that they're having trouble with, and there's some way that we can address it through what we're doing with our meditation content, we'd love to hear from you. But we're just enjoying the evolution of what we do. Every day is, every day is another adventure in creating a business that has very tangible, positive effect on people. So that's, we're just thrilled, and we feel blessed.
Mm-hmm.
All right. Well, I commend you guys for taking on this mission and spreading the word out there. I think it's has so much potential for really shifting people in, like you said, kind of their worst place ever. So it's a good and bad business niche
Right.
to be in, but being able to affect positive change in that time of crisis, I think is a cool place to try and do it.
Thank you.
All right.
Yes.
Well, I will have links to your guys' websites, your guys' social feeds in the show notes for the podcast. Really appreciate you guys sharing your story with me, and I hope we can help spread the word and help some people out.
Well, thank you, Ben. Thanks for doing what you do too.
Yeah, absolutely. Thanks so much. It was great.
Yeah, no, it was my pleasure. It's my pleasure. Thanks so much. Thank you so much for listening to this episode of Purpose Up with me, Ben Stein. Please subscribe here on YouTube so you can be updated on when the latest episodes come out, as well on Apple, Spotify, or wherever else you consume podcasts. And since you're still sticking around, I've got a special free gift for you. Just go to purposeup.com/free gift or click this link here to get book recommendations from me, a guided meditation, as well as a book I wrote on how to live your life more purposefully. Thank you so much for spending time with me. I really appreciate it and you.